Hi everyone, I'm Anushree. I also go by Anu. I'm originally from Mumbai, but I've lived in Canada for the last 10 years, UK last 2 years, and now I live in Switzerland, Geneva, where I work for the Schwab Foundation for Social Entrepreneurship, which is housed at the World Economic Forum. And predominantly, I look at youth social entrepreneurship and innovation, as well as innovative finance. These are my two sort of specialities here. I think that's a very interesting question. It's also complex and a layered one. For me, I think power sits at different stakeholders, and it's not one central, there's no one central custodian of that power. If you're talking about a regulatory power, it sits with the government, it sits with the public sector and the agency they have to embark upon change and lead change, because I don't think there is no other stakeholder in our society that has the power that the government has. And so fundamentally, I want to believe that governments are here to serve the people that they truly represent. And so they hold that power to bring about regulatory reform and change. If you talk about structural power, I think it sits with sort of a lot of funders and philanthropists who are paying for these outcomes that we are trying to bring about. So I think a lot of power sits there. If you talk about latent power, the moral power, it sits with the community, because I think the community is the one that has gone through the lived experience. It's the one that is the beneficiary of the solution, but it's also the one that's the bearer of the problem. And so it's very important for power to be redistributed in a way where conversations and solutions are collective in nature, because I think the problems that we face today can never be solved in silos. The problems that we face today are sort of also collective in nature. They're not caused by one particular stakeholder, and therefore the solutions that we require also cannot be in silos, and they need a collective thought leadership. They need exchange of perspectives and collective design and thinking. And I think the role of every stakeholder in understanding what they bring to the table is in so many ways a recognition of that power and translation of that power into action. So with that comes great responsibility, and I feel like we're collectively responsible for the future we hold. I'll share one experience I had in 2018, and this is when I went to Tanzania to sort of conduct a research analysis on how a collective public-private partnership actually helped deliver essential healthcare to remote Tanzania. And for me, what was the most life-changing there was speaking to a community health worker who said that impact is only you can only define impact if it has reached the last mile. And so when you're targeting the lowest hanging fruit, you're looking at activity. But when you're targeting the highest hanging fruit, that's when you reach impact. And so how can this one solution really benefit the hard to reach communities, the most vulnerable communities, and the communities that really require this change for them to uplift themselves. I think that's the definition of true impact. Everything else is activity. Everything else is a journey towards achieving that impact. So I feel very strongly about companies that hide behind activity metrics and call it impact or outcome. And I'm here to change that conversation. I'm here to think about how we can translate, how we can reach that depth in our change-making mechanisms. I think the one barrier that I would like to remove is the assumption that donation or aid is enough as a means to change. Yes, it's a crucial instrument to bring about change, but that's not where your involvement as a stakeholder or a funder, it shouldn't be limited to that. I want everybody involved in the funding mechanism to come to a facility like RLabs and really see what you're funding towards. You really see the problem to be able to understand the value of the solution. And I think it's very important for that to be integrated into the social innovation sort of ecosystem. The closer you are to the problem, the more you integrate it into your thinking, the more robust your solution is. And I think that's often missing in aid giving, in charities and in donations. And I feel like that's something that I want to really amplify in the future. I don't have an answer for what should be removed, but I definitely have an answer for what should be added. I think, we're living in very difficult times. We're living in very interesting times. And we're living in very, very complex times where it might seem easier to give up. And it might seem easier to choose the most simple way around a problem. But true social innovation is in resilience, is in endurance, and is in community. And I think realizing that whatever we do, if we do it collectively, if we do it with the people that matter to us, that there is nothing more powerful than that. If true social innovation lies in the belief that what I want to solve is possible. And I think that conviction is the true essence and the true currency of social innovation. The open-mindedness to really understand different perspectives and not judge people from where they come from or for what they bring to the table, and to just create more space. Because yesterday I was having a conversation and they said, the system is not welcoming enough. And I said, if the system is not welcoming enough, you make the system yours and you become the system. And that's, I think, the most powerful thing that you can do. And that's the most crucial aspect of social innovation, is to be in the system, to change the system. And I think that's the only message I have, is to continue the conversation, to ask those questions, however uncomfortable they are, and to have those conversations, however difficult and vulnerable they are. That's the only way forward.